Good morning. I'm going to talk to you today about the update of the JPI Cultural Heritage Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. To give you a little bit of background, our previous Strategic Research Agenda, SRA, was published in 2014 with the aim of presenting cultural heritage as a holistic, integrated research area and bringing together the diverse and potentially conflicting approaches used by the research and cultural bodies and institutions responsible for Europe's cultural heritage. In 2019, it was decided to update the SRA to take into account the evolving research landscape and to include new themes that needed to be addressed. The SRA was upgraded to a strategic research and innovation agenda to fully acknowledge the innovative nature of cultural heritage research. The SRIA 2020 is the result of a co-designed process involving all members of the JPI and the national consultation panels and mirror groups, and also the members of the JPI Advisory and Scientific Board. It involved designing a methodology, identifying gaps and needs, consulting members on their priorities, and considering what the most important challenges were that cultural heritage research would face in the next 5 to 10 years. Throughout 2019 and early 2020, several workshops were held and 4 focus groups worked more specifically on shaping the main research priorities: developing a reflective society, connecting people with cultural heritage, creating knowledge, and safeguarding cultural heritage resources. The new SRIA was published in the summer of 2020. In order to implement the SRIA and provide an ethical framework for research, 3 categories of tools have been identified: principles, priority areas, and operational instruments. The SRIA's principles. Throughout the consultation process, it was clear that there were some underlying principles that cut across all of the thematic priorities and that these needed to be clearly set out in the SRIA to express the JPI's commitment to high-quality cultural heritage research. A holistic approach. This principle reaffirms that cultural heritage includes tangible, intangible, and digital heritage, has many interfaces with natural heritage, and brings together diverse scientific disciplines. Collaborative and transdisciplinary research. This principle stresses the need for transdisciplinary and collaborative research undertaken within the JPI cultural heritage, involving other stakeholders, NGOs, and heritage professionals. Public-led research and community engagement. This principle recognises the importance and relevance of including citizens and communities in research projects from an early stage in order to develop co-designed and co-produced research and to enhance and widen the impact of the projects. Digital. This principle stresses the need to acknowledge the key role of new tools and technologies within cultural heritage research and the need to address these instruments through critical digital studies approaches, taking into account their sustainability and accessibility. Education and training. This principle states that the JPICH, through capacity building, involvement of early career researchers, and collaboration with heritage actors and professionals, aims to promote inclusive research and gender, socioeconomic, and ethnic diversity. Communication, dissemination, and impact. This principle acknowledges that communication and dissemination of research results and findings, particularly towards the wider public, are essential. The economic, cultural, and social impact of research must be considered, and knowledge-based policies and guidelines for the preservation and use of cultural heritage should be developed. Working with other initiatives and infrastructures. This principle stresses that the JPI Cultural Heritage is committed to working with other initiatives in Europe and beyond, such as the JPI Climate and HERA, Humanities in the European Research Area, in order to avoid duplication and foster coordination in efforts. The 4 priority areas. There are now 4 priority areas in the SRIA 2020 which stem from the priorities in the original SRA. The first is a reflective heritage for a resilient society. It focuses on the wider benefit of cultural heritage to society, on how people are at the core of cultural heritage, but also how they can be both an asset and a risk to cultural heritage. The second is sustainable management of cultural heritage. This priority focuses on the way governments, emerging technologies, research and innovation can enable sustainable management of cultural heritage and a better engagement of stakeholders, communities and individuals. The third is cultural heritage in a changing context. Facing a rapidly changing context, it focuses on areas such as urban and rural development, globalisation and demographic change. It also addresses the question of tourism and mass tourism and the positive and negative implications they can have for cultural heritage. The fourth is cultural heritage facing climate and environmental change, and represents the main change from the first version of the SRA. It focuses both on the impact of climate and environmental change on cultural and natural heritage, and also the ways in which cultural and natural heritage can be used as a resource for mitigating climate change and for fostering sustainable development. Operational instruments. To implement these 4 priority areas, 3 different types of operational instruments are proposed. Funding instruments. The JPI Cultural Heritage has already run 6 transnational calls and funded 55 projects to a total of €29 million. The projects cover a range of themes across tangible, intangible and digital heritage. We will further develop the model of transnational calls based on one or more of the new priority research themes. To further maximise the impact of the JPI Cultural Heritage and enable the most inclusive opportunities for the projects and the researchers, alternative funding instruments will also be considered. For example, these could include impact accelerator calls to develop new knowledge exchange and engagement activities, targeted calls to underpin mobility and integration of new researchers, international networking calls to enable discussion and exchange between heritage researchers from participating countries and stakeholders from outside the JPICH, mini calls which could be used as stepping stones to longer projects, enabling the involvement of early career researchers, policymakers and communities. We will also foster a better coordination between JPICH calls and the national calls run by our partners in order to maximise the financial contributions of JPICH partners to joint funding calls. Finally, a new 5-year roadmap will be developed, along with an action plan to allow for transparency, thorough monitoring and evaluation of the joint activities. Networking instruments. These can take the form of outreach activities and workshops. Networking can be achieved through the Heritage Research Hub, the use of cultural diplomacy, the advisory group and the national consultation panels. Management instruments. Impact indicators and a communication strategy will be developed in order to maximise the impact of research projects and joint activities, and to raise the profile of the JPICH. These management instruments will enable the JPICH to continue to develop joint foresight capabilities through concerted research actions and policy coordination, and support the creation of a common action framework to reduce the fragmentation of cultural heritage research. The increasing role of JPI cultural heritage on the European and international scenes. The work that the JPICH has conducted over the last 10 years, in particular its involvement in major international programmes and its support to policymaking at European level, has helped to strengthen the position of Europe as an international leader in cultural heritage research. It has also helped to raise public awareness and to increase and strengthen international coordinated action through the creation of a European research area in cultural heritage. Within this European and international framework, the JPICH will continue to act as a hub, developing bespoke approaches to address priorities and challenges and involving the relevant stakeholders of the global heritage research landscape, such as other JPIs, P2P networks and partnerships. The JPICH seeks to intensify the international collaborations it has initiated with the other JPIs, such as JPI Climate, or networks such as HERA, Humanities in the European Research Area, and to develop new ones. Research infrastructures. In October 2019, the JPICH signed a joint declaration with the European Research Infrastructure for Heritage Science, underlining the highly complementary nature of both initiatives for the structuring of the cultural heritage research community. Local, regional, national and global funders. New avenues for local, regional, national and global funding opportunities will be explored with a view to increase the reach of JPICH activities, such as with the Belmont Forum, structural and cohesion funds. Large projects and networks. the JPICH intends to pursue its objective to act as a hub connecting different scale projects, thus contributing to the coordination and rationalisation of heritage science and of research on cultural heritage. International organisations and NGOs. The JPICH will update its concept papers to further strengthen heritage research beyond Europe, heritage policy making and cooperation with international organisations and NGOs. Horizon Europe. A number of challenges and drivers of the Horizon Europe work programme are in line with and complementary to the JPICH SRIA, especially in Cluster 2 focusing on culture, creativity and inclusive society. Synergies can also be found in other Horizon Europe clusters, such as Cluster 3 on civil security and society, and with other Directorates General, DGs of the European Commission, in particular with the DGs for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture, and Communications Networks, Content and Technology, but also with the DG for Regional and Urban Policy, and the DG for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs. A concept paper positioning the JPICH in relation to the wider European policy landscape will be produced after the final Horizon Europe programme has been published as an annex to this SRIA. Moreover, the JPICH will continue to promote coordination among member states in order to build a partnership on cultural heritage in the next 3 to 4 years. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. JPICH members wanted to highlight the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, as an underlying research principle for the JPICH activities and to align the implementation of our research priorities with the implementation of the UN SDGs. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015, provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet, now and into the future. At its heart are the 17 SDGs, which are an urgent call for action by all countries in a global partnership. To give a few examples, the SRIA connects with SDG 3, focused on good health and well-being, through Priority Area 1, with the aim to demonstrate the impact of cultural heritage on human well-being, for instance by studying its relationship to social cohesion, economic development, quality and sense of place, health and quality of life. SDG 4 focuses on quality education, which also corresponds to the underlying principle of education and training for the JPICH activities and research projects. Through all 4 priority areas, the JPICH will ensure inclusive and equitable education and will promote lifelong opportunities for all. SDG 10 focuses on reduced inequalities, and this is addressed through the first priority area of the SRIA, with the aim to explore the uniting and dividing abilities of cultural heritage. Please download and refer to the SRIA to learn more about the multiple connections between the United Nations SDGs and the JPICH priority areas. To conclude, I would like to underline that this new Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda highlights the overall actions and objectives of the JPI Cultural Heritage. It aims to stimulate and organise research in the field of cultural heritage, thus creating a dynamic and efficient European heritage science area. In that respect, this new SRIA supports the improvement of the coordination of research on cultural heritage at EU level by identifying short and long-term needs and priorities. It supports the concentration and increase of human, material and financial resources in the field of cultural heritage. It promotes multidisciplinary approaches. It aims to raise the profile of cultural heritage research to citizens, policymakers and stakeholders, and to build a European research area for cultural heritage research with the hope of raising it to an international level.